The bus ride to my hometown was the longest trip of my life. Not because of the distance, but because I felt like 1,000 eyes were pressing against the windows and following me. I could feel the harsh criticism. Even though I was the only person in the car, the driver didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The few times he looked in the rearview mirror were enough. They all knew what I was or who I was. The town hadn't changed much, but the air was different. It was more still and thick. Like when someone screams. Along the streets were homes that showed signs of having been through an epidemic. Windows had been boarded up, gardens had grown wild, and doors would never again be opened to greet visitors. Thoughts of the past and the spirits of those we lost made the town feel empty. When I got off the bus, my feet hit the crack in the sidewalk that I used to avoid as a child, because I was afraid it would hurt my mom's back. Now, superstitions didn't make sense. There were much worse things going on than bad luck. My house, or what used to be my house, stood at the end of the street. Its outside looked the same as everyone else's, but there was no one living inside. The door squeaked open, just like the people who used to call me a friend did when I came back. I felt like a stranger in my own house because the walls were so quiet that it was louder than the noise that drove me out. Every step I took through the rooms made me think of the life that had been taken away from me. I went back to my old room, which was a museum of a life that had been cut short. The pictures on the wall, the stack of unfinished school books, and the bed where I woke up that terrible morning, not knowing what a terrible night was going to be. Everything was still there, a cruel picture of innocence before the world went crazy. It wasn't easy to fall asleep. It never is when your thoughts are so scary that your mind can't tell the difference between them and real life. I could hear them, the groans and the moving feet of the dead, which were sounds I was used to hearing. But the most scary part was the silence that followed. It was that silence that let the memories creep in. I saw the faces of the people I loved who were scared because of me. I could almost feel their blood on my skin. No, I can't go there. Not once more. The government said the medicine worked, that we were better, and that we were once again human. People in the town, though, said something different. What they called us was converts, which is a nice word for monsters that are hiding. They thought it was only a matter of time before we went back and loved our friends' flesh again. The town woke me up when the first rock hit my window just before dawn. It was clear. I wasn't welcome here. I was no longer one of them. I was different, and people feared and hated me. I knew this homecoming was a mistake, as the sun came up and put a pale light over the town. I had made it through the epidemic, but it was a whole other battle to get through the hatred of the people who used to live in my neighborhood. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to fight it. When I walked down Main Street the morning after I got back, it felt like the whole town let out a sigh of disdain. People looked at me through the blinds and doors shut behind me as I went by. As I got closer, the whispers didn't bother to stop. They wanted me to hear them. Monster, they hissed. Killer, the words cut like knives, but they were right. In the end, that's what I was. I tried to keep my head down and ignore the looks and the angry red signs that showed up overnight on my door that said, "Go back to the grave." It hurt the most, though, when people I knew crossed the street to avoid me. Their silence hurt the most. They were the same people who had laughed with my family at dinner and cheered for me at football games. They looked at me now like I was a ghost. A memory that should have been buried. The town meeting was a joke. It was meant to be about the reintegration process, but it quickly turned into a court case where I was the defendant. I sat in the back and gripped my hands in my lap to keep them from shaking. I saw Mr. Henderson, whose daughter had been in my class, get angry and point right at me. I couldn't believe it. "They're time bombs," he yelled. "I didn't give my Ellie a second shot. Why would they?" Other people spoke up, and their voices shook as they tried to be reasonable. "They're victims too," Mrs. Leary said, looking at me quickly and then away. We can't blame them for what the virus made them do. But the anger and sadness that filled the room like a live thing drowned out what she had to say. The bad dreams got worse that night. Ellie's eyes were wide with fear as I saw her face. I just couldn't remember, but the more I tried to push the memories away, the stronger they became, leaving me gasping for air in the dark of my room. The chills and shakes then came on. I kept telling myself it wasn't what I was afraid of, just the flu or a cold. I was unable to return to my former self. I was unable to. When I came home, I found my cat, Mr. Whiskers, on the front step, his body broken and a note on his collar that said, "Next time, it'll be you." It was easy to understand. There was no stopping them from killing, to get rid of me. At least I thought I did. I began to see things. In the corner of my eye, I saw shadows move, and I heard growls. I was too tired to eat or sleep. I didn't know how to stop myself from falling apart. The writing on the wall, the dead cat, and the bad dreams were just the start. The town had said I was guilty, and they were right. It wasn't a question of if or when they would come after me. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought that maybe they were right to be afraid of me. The days were all mixed up, with gray dawns and dark evenings. Time got fuzzy, and I found myself in places where I couldn't remember how I got there. It was once morning in the middle of the woods. The ground was wet, and I could taste metal on my tongue. Fear grabbed my throat as I stumbled home. The light in the early morning was too harsh and bright. The angry looks from the people in the town turned into something scarier. There were dead animals on my porch, and their eyes would stare up at me. It was like they were telling me I was being watched, judged, and doomed. The whispers turned into yells, and the avoiding turned into anger. I was an outcast, a pariah, and the stuff of their worst fears. After that came the night of the fire. I woke up to the smell of smoke, which was like a thick blanket that was choking me. It got in through my windows and under my doors. They set fire to my house, which was the burning ending to the sentence they had already given me. I got out of there through the back. The heat burned the hairs on the back of my neck, and the roar of the flames drowned out my coughs. Among the chaos, I met other converts who had tried to go home, but were met with the same hate. We huddled together in the dark, and our whispered talks were filled with fear and anger. "We have to leave," said a girl who was about the same age as me when I died of the outbreak. "This place has nothing for us. They will always think of us as monsters." However, leaving made me feel like I had given up, and that the evil inside me was all that was left. But what did we have to do? The town made it clear that we were not wanted and that our very presence was an insult to the people who had died in the epidemic. When the crowd came, they made the choice for us. They chased us through the streets with torches and bats, their angry faces twisted. As we ran away, the night air was filled with the sound of screams and broken glass. I ran until my lungs hurt, and the sound of my heart beating in my ears shut out the sound of people following me. I was on the edge of town, at the graveyard where it all began for me. The graves were empty, a stark reminder of how much the disease cost. I saw the town again, but this time it looked like it was on fire. I felt a familiar sort of hunger in my gut. I had to run away from the violence, the memories, and the part of me that wanted chaos. But when I looked past the cemetery and saw the dark trees, I paused. Was I running to get away from what I really was, or was I running to save myself? As night fell, I was alone with my real and imagined enemies. With each ragged breath, the line between them became less clear. I wrapped myself in the night like a blanket to protect myself from the chaos I left behind. There was a fire in my chest that felt like the fires that destroyed my home. It was a blaze of anger and fear. Every step I took away from the town made me feel free and sad at the same time. The darkness spoke to me in a whisper, like a siren call that pulled me closer. I had made it through the crowd, the fire, and the hate, but at what cost? The memories I had worked so hard to push away were now pouring out of me like a flood. They came at me in a rush, all blood and screams. I remembered how dangerous it was, how hungry I was, and how much fun it was to be an animal. There was something else. There was something else, though, that made me feel very cold. When the treatment began, the fighting had not stopped. The blackouts and waking up in strange places weren't just signs of stress or being persecuted in town. There was something much worse about them. I wasn't hunting to stay alive. I was hunting for payback. At first, the faces of the people I had attacked during my blackouts showed up. These were not random victims, but people who had hurt me. No, it wasn't the virus that made them afraid of me. It was me, Patrick. I was the boy who had been picked on, the teen who had been shunned, and the convert who'd been looked for. The virus gave me the strength to fight back, and even after the treatment, I still wanted to get even. It was like a bad seed had been planted deep inside me. I stopped and looked back when I got to the edge of town. Even though the flames were far away, their light still turned the sky a bloody red. I could try to explain and show them that it wasn't the virus that made me do what I did, but something much more human. But would they pay attention? Do they care? I turned away because I felt heavy from what I had done and chosen. It was hard to tell what lay ahead, because the road was covered in fog and shade. I could look for people who were like me. Converts who were having a hard time fitting in with a world that didn't want us anymore. Or I could disappear and turn into a ghost, which is a scary story told to kids in whispers. The crack in me was complete, and the line between human and monster was no longer clear. All I knew as I walked into the night was the regular beat of my heart, which told me I was still alive. Was that a gift or a curse in the end? The world did not end in a loud or quiet way. At the end, there was a chorus of groans and the smell of rot that wouldn't go away. It's been 3 years. 3 years have passed since the virus ripped through our country, leaving behind empty towns and dead bodies that came back to life. I'm alive, which is a lot more than most people can say. As an MT, I used to save lives. Now, I'm just trying to keep a few other people and myself from becoming roaming dead. We're stuck in a place that used to be a small mountain town, the kind of spot that you'd miss if you closed your eyes on the highway. There's been safety there, but there's also been jail time. We are not in the military. We are just survivors. There's me, the medic. Jackson, who has been on 2 foreign tours and is now our unofficial leader. Sarah, the mechanic whose hands are always oily. And Zoe, the young scientist who thinks she can save the world. Michael is the next one. We're going to risk everything because of him. You might think Michael is just another survivor if you didn't know any better because he is quiet and stays to himself. He's not, though. He's the only person we know of who has been bitten and lived to tell the tale without turning into one of those things. He's our golden ticket, the only thing that can save us from this nightmare. The last virus lab in the country is hundreds of miles away, and they've been blasting over and over again, asking for people who have been exposed and lived. We need to get Michael there. We only have long shots left, so it's a long shot. We've spent weeks getting ready, finding a running car, planning the least dangerous routes, and hopefully collecting enough supplies to make it through the trip. Not only the dead are dangerous, but so are the living. People who are still alive are now fighting with each other out of desperation. We can't afford to trust anyone, but we're about to give the fate of all people to a man we barely know. I can't sleep the night before we leave. The howling wind outside is a scary reminder of how nature doesn't care about our situation. I can't help but stare at Michael, who is sitting alone and gazing into the fire. I don't like something about him. He is immune to everything, but it's not just that. It's something about the way he moves and talks. He has something to hide. I can tell. But what do we have to do? We get our stuff together and leave as soon as dawn breaks. It feels like any other morning for a moment, because the air is so fresh. Almost there. As we leave the safety of our mountain hideaway, though, the real world starts to hit us again. The roads are broken and overgrown. It's very quiet, and every shadow looks like it could hide a death sentence. We're a cloud of hope in a world that doesn't have any more. When angels don't want to go, we're the fools who rush in. But we have to take any chance that we can turn things around, no matter how small. For the people we've lost, the people who are still alive, and the world that used to be. I take one last look at the place that has been our home as we drive away. I don't think we'll make it to the lab, or that Michael's blood holds the key. I also don't think I'll ever come back. I do know one thing, though. The dead may have received Earth, but we're not ready to give it up yet. The road is a winding, scary path, and with each mile we go, the dead get a tighter grip on us. We've been moving for days, and the world outside our noisy car is a blur of empty spaces. The places we drive through are like cemeteries for the past, and the cities are like tombs for the dead. Michael is sitting next to me, and he looks off into the middle distance a lot. It's like he's looking for a sign of the life we used to have, but there's nothing outside, nothing left of a world that the end of the world chewed up and spit out. Jackson drives with a hard focus, but I can see Michael in the rearview mirror where his eyes dart. Sarah and Zoe are in the back with their guns ready. The engine's growl makes it hard to hear what they are saying. Though we work together, there are a lot of fears that aren't being said. When we get to what used to be a small town, it's our first real test. It's a terrible irony that the map calls it hope. We need to look for supplies, but as we get closer, the only sound we can hear is the clear moans of the dead. They're still here, stumbling through the streets with bodies that look nothing like the people they used to be. With an easy plan, we park on the edge and walk in. We'll get what we need and then leave. But even the best, laid plans often fail when this new truth comes up. As soon as we step outside, the smell of death fills the air, and the groans get louder. As a group, we move, taking careful steps and getting our guns ready. But you can find them everywhere. There are more people fighting than us, and it's terrible. When we kill one, it seems like two more appear to take its place. Limbs are cut off, and heads are crushed. Michael turns into a force we've never seen before in the chaos. He fights so fiercely that it chills you to see his hands and face covered in the dark blood of the dead. It does work, but it's also wrong. Even when the last zombie falls, the twinkle in his eye doesn't go away. We get what we can, but the experience has scared us. The silence in the car is alive as we drive off. That Michael seemed almost at home in the chaos is something that no one wants to talk about. That night, we camp in a barn that has been left empty. The alarm goes off, and one by one, we try to get some rest. But I don't know how to sleep anymore. As I lay awake and listen to the sounds of the night, I can't get rid of the thought that someone is after us. I hear it while I'm on duty, a soft rustling outside. My heart is beating fast as I look into the darkness and see them. Nobody but people. Not zombies. They are survivors like us. But there's nothing nice about the way they act. They want what we have so badly that they're ready to kill. It's a quick, bloody, and unavoidable fight. We're not the same polite people who looked down on violence in the past. We're animals in a tight spot, and will do anything to stay alive. The thieves are dead, and we have to deal with the weight of what we've done. We bury the dead in silence as dawn comes up. No one is giving a speech or praying, just the sound of wood being hit by dirt. When Michael helps, it seems like he's not really there. He's just doing it. The farmhouse is now just a dot in our rearview mirror as the sun rises, but the light of the day doesn't make things better. It only makes the blood on our clothes and the grimace on our faces stand out more. In a world full of decay, The lab is a safe haven, a bright light of hope. Now that we're close, I can almost taste the clean air. However, as we get closer, the air feels heavy, as if the whole world is holding its breath. Michael has been getting worse. The first sound was a soft cough that he tried to hide, but as the days went by, it was impossible to run away from. He's pale. His eyes are sunken and his hands are shaking, which shows that he's going through a lot inside. We've all seen it, but Jackson is the one who finally talks to him about it. We are camped out in an empty factory as night falls, and Jackson grabs Michael by the collar and throws him against the wall. "What's wrong with you?" he asks, his voice a low growl of doubt. Michael's secret comes out like a cut. He doesn't just not get sick, he also spreads it. He has a different bug that has changed. As the spread grew, he found a stash of antivirals that he has been taking. But now, his supply is running out. Everyone in the group lets out a gasp. Zoe's face shows that she feels betrayed, and Sarah's shows that she is scared. A cold fear spreads through my body. It's been like we've been moving with a time bomb. The moral dilemma hits us hard. The plan is the only way to find a cure. Should we give up on it? Do we leave Michael behind even though he is dangerous? He has become one of us. People are yelling and pointing their fingers in the argument. But the plan wins in the end. We need to get better. It's what people need. Michael must have it. We can't ignore him just yet because he's one of us. We keep going. The lab is now only a day's trip away. Michael's health gets worse, and the times he is aware quickly pass. His body is at war with itself, and he's not the same person we met. It can be seen that the lab is there. Michael falls down and starts shaking. We rush to help him, but we can't do anything. The virus is taking over, and his body is changing in an awful way that makes us stand back in shock. Sarah is yelling, Zoe is crying, and Jackson is quiet and has his gun out. We no longer know Michael. Something else, something dangerous, is there in his place. It's something I do. Jackson's hand is steady in my hand as we point the gun at Michael's head. While we pull the trigger, my voice says, "I'm sorry." The sound is so loud that it hurts my ears, and I can hear how final it is. We walk slowly toward the lab, our steps heavy with the weight of what we've done. When the doors open, fresh air rushes in. They promise to use Michael's blood to make the vaccine after they take his body. I can't help but wonder if it was worth it as I watch them wheel him away. The people who died and the things they gave up. I'm not the same person I used to be. I feel empty. Now that our goal is over, but at what cost? I have turned into a killer in a world with no room for kindness. I cry for the first time in what seems like a long time as I lay down to rest in the lab's halls. For Michael, for us, and for all people. Even though it's quiet outside, there's a storm going on inside. I don't know how much longer we can take it. The lab was meant to be the end goal, the result of all the risks we took and the worst dreams we had. Still, as I stand here with the cold gun barrel against my skull, I understand that this was always going to be the end game. Brutal, unforgiving, and final. Michael quickly changed into someone else. In one moment, he was a person, and in the next, he was a growling animal with eyes that were so hungry they hurt. Even though we thought we were ready, nothing could have made us ready for this. The lab techs are the first to fall. They were the ones who brought hope. Michael cuts off their screams as he rips through them. His virus-filled spit turns them into what we fear the most. The disease spreads like flames, and Safe Place turns into a burning house. Jackson, Sarah, and Zoe all look at me with scared and desperate looks in their eyes. The dead stand between us and the only way out. I feel the weight of the gun in my hand, which is both a curse and a gift. When I tell them to run, they hesitate for a moment before they get it. I'm not going with them. This is my stand, what I'm giving up. When I fire, The sound fills the room and is hard to hear. Michael turns, but his moves are jerky and not human. It's not enough when the bullet hits him right in the chest. It's not enough. Right away, he's on me with his teeth bared and ready to rip my skin apart. I fight because emotions and the basic need to stay alive drive me. But I know it's no longer about me, even though I'm having a hard time. The other people and the blood sample from Michael that could lead to a fix are important. I get him to move back, and with all the strength I still have, I scream for his friends to leave. They do. They run away, leaving me alone with this man, eating monster. The gun is thrown across the floor and then picked up again. I lost my knife in the fight. It's just me and my raw hands against Michael, who is a natural force that won't stop. When he bites me, I can feel the terrible pain of my imminent death. But I fight. Even though the virus starts to take over, I fight because of all the people we've lost and the hopes and dreams that have been dashed. It was only minutes long, but it seems like a long time. The last blow that Michael took was so hard that it caved in his head. I'm by myself, and the pain of my wounds is a grim warning of what's to come. I can hear the other people outside, running away. They got through it. I pull myself up against a wall. The virus is already making my body hurt. I can't and won't become one of them. The gun is easy to get to, which makes me happy. My last thoughts are of the world that used to be, full of joy, hope, and dreams. I have done what I could to protect this world. Take a break now. The sound of one gunshot can be heard all over the lab. It's like the ending of a long, scary sentence. The city's core was like a sore that wouldn't heal. Tonight, it bled into the streets, smelling like anger and violence. Officer Rick Martinez here. The darkness I was about to enter wasn't just the lack of light. It was the shadow of death itself. Danny was a brother in blue who had been taken from this world by the cruel vipers. They thought that if they killed one of us, no one would find out and hit them back. They were not right. As a quartet of justice, we moved through the night in silence, even though our hearts were beating fast. The Viper's home was an old, run-down apartment building that stood out against the skyline like a gravestone. We were going to fix things here. The plan was easy. Just go in, catch the jerks who did it, and leave. But plans often fall apart when you least expect it. We snuck through the maze of trash, filled hallways, making noise with our steps and holding our breath. But fate can be just as mean as the streets of a city. It didn't matter what gave us away, a missed step or a floorboard that squeaked. When the vipers caught us, they swarmed us like rats, their grins as sharp as the knives they were brandishing. Cold steel pressed against my wrists, and the click of the handcuffs told us all that we had failed. That's when they dragged us into a room that smelled like sweat and blood. The dim light flickered and made long shadows that made it look like it was making fun of our situation. We were all on our knees, with the cold gun barrels against our heads. I could hear Danny's words in my head, like a whisper from outside, telling me to stay strong and hold on. I thought about my family, the promise I made to serve and protect them, and the life I was about to leave behind. As I waited for the end, my heart was beating fast with sadness. After that, confusion broke out. There was a terrible noise that cut through the building as the walls shook. The door flew open, letting in all the worst fears. Dark creatures from the pits of hell, their eyes burning with hunger and their teeth gnashing with excitement. The vipers were caught off guard by these new, bloodthirsty invaders, and for a moment, they forgot how cruel they were. The room turned into a painting of death as bullets flew and bodies fell. In the chaos, it was hard to tell the difference between law enforcement and lawbreakers. There was only one rule we could follow now. We had to stay alive. The animals didn't care about the badges we wore or the sins the vipers carried. They saw us all as prey. The chains that held me down broke when something hit the viper holding the keys. Even though my hands were free, That freedom didn't make me feel better. It only made me more determined to stay alive. When I lunged for a gun that had dropped, my fingers wrapped around the grip in a way that didn't feel good. When I shot, the gun made a loud noise that echoed through the room. People believe that the moment before they die should be peaceful, quiet, and full of thought. But when the head of the Vipers cocked the hammer on my service pistol, chaos broke out in the world. An awful roar filled the air. The walls shook, and the door to the dark room blew inward. They came in huge groups, hideous parodies of real people with their bodies twisted and their mouths wide open. The creatures looked like a nightmare, pulled from reality. Their eyes were wild with hunger, and their skin was hanging off their bones in tattered ribbons. Panic spread like a virus, much faster than the things did. The Vipers, these tough criminals who had just a moment ago been warning us of our death, were now screaming and shooting randomly. As the bullets flew through the air, they hit both the dead who wouldn't die and the living who were too slow to move. As I jumped to my feet, my adrenaline made the world tilt. It was the muscle memory from all the hours I spent training at the range, in the gym, and on the streets. I worked for the government, and if I had to die, I would fight. Something bared its teeth and lunged at my throat. When the smelly air passed by, I stepped back and slammed my hand into its head. It felt awful when the bone gave way, and I pushed the horrible thing away. The room around me had turned into a den of thieves. The Vipers fought back, but these things wouldn't give up. One of the bad guys, a kid no more than 19 years old, was pulled down and yelled at. I saw the life leave his eyes as his teeth dug into his skin. Form a circle. My voice could be heard over the noise as I yelled. Back to back, aim for the head. Hearing the Vipers was strange, but we were temporarily on the same side because we were both trying to stay alive. We stood close together, the living facing the dead. I took out the magazine, put it back in, and kept shooting. There were many of them, but we were resolved. 12 of them were put down for every one of us who fell. But they kept coming like a never-ending wave of death. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, Toro, the leader of the Vipers, gave me a smile. Good plan, cop, he grunted, his voice rough from respect he got in the strangest way. Because we fought right after each other, the line between law and crime became fuzzy. The creatures seemed to feel our determination, and they thought for a moment before moving. Just that moment was enough for us. As some of the creatures turned to eat the dead, a way to the fire escape became clear. Move. We took a chance, tripping over bodies and broken things as we fought our way to the outside world, which seemed like a glimmer of hope. We jumped out of the room and onto the fire escape. The cold night air was very different from the hot and smelly room behind us. Things below us were like a war zone. There were fires, and the sounds of chaos rose up to meet us. The building would soon be full of people. We had to quickly move. As we went down the metal stairs, though, I knew the night wasn't over yet. We were in a fight for our lives because the creatures were everywhere. As we slid down the fire escape into the chaos below, it shook from the weight of our despair. The things were running through the streets like locusts, making the city look like a horror show. I really never believed in monsters, but reality has a way of breaking your dreams. I was with Toro, the leader of the Vipers. His face was a mask of stern determination. We need a plan, he grunted, but it was hard to hear him over the screams and growls. My mind was racing as I nodded. The precinct, I answered. The fort is fortified and full of weapons. That's where we stand. When the thieves looked at each other, they saw that the blue wall of the law was now the only thing that was stopping the flow of death. They had to swallow a sour pill. But they had to in order to stay alive. The blue and striped soldiers moved together as a single unit. The things wouldn't stop. But we had something they didn't. A reason. Guns and stuff. A lot of guns. Even though the streets were a mess, I knew them inside and out. This way. I yelled and led them through a maze of back streets and lanes. The body of the thing that jumped out of the darkness was a twisted mess of muscle and bone. I shot without thinking, and the bullet hit its target with a dark ichor splash. It fell, but two came up to take its place, making a hydra of blood and anger. It was like Thor had a shotgun in his hand. Toro was a natural force. Animal after animal fell, but it seemed like more would appear after each one. At the time, we were close to the police station. A bigger creature with arms that were all jumbled together came barreling into our group. It caught a young thug who couldn't have been more than 17 years old and tore into him so quickly and viciously that it was almost kind. The boy's screams went straight through me and made me remember why we were fighting. No longer was it just about staying alive. It was also about keeping our humanity in the face of this constant dehumanization. "We cover you! You get the doors open!" Toro yelled above the noise. I quickly ran toward the station while nodding. The keys to the armory were heavy in my pocket. The others put down a fire that stopped the enemy, and the rhythm of their shots emphasized our grim determination. As I got to the doors, things started coming at me while I fumbled with the keys. When the lock finally opened, I jumped inside and turned around to see other people fighting their way through. "Come on!" I screamed, afraid and excited at the same time. As they backed into the precinct, the animals snapped at their tails. The sound of us slamming the doors shut echoed like the last note of a requiem. The area was a tomb on the inside. The lights flickered, and the quiet was very different from the noise outside. For now, we were safe. But the battle was about to start. Toro walked up to me with his eyes wide. He said, "We'll hold them off as long as we can," and his voice showed that he kind of respected them. I looked him in the eyes and nodded. Together, I said out loud, "We made our position stronger by blocking doors, filling our weapons, and getting ready for the attack. The things would show up, but we would be ready for them. We needed to be." As we worked together, the line between police officer and offender didn't just blur. It went away. We were still alive, and we were going to fight the darkness together. The courtyard, which used to be a stronghold of order, had turned into our fortress in the end times. Every desk and chair had been turned into walls. The things outside scratched at the walls, and their howls kept reminding us that we were under attack. I put my trust in Toro and his vipers. These men used to live without the law, but now I trusted them with my life. Our goal was the same, to see another dawn. We were no longer just friends. We were now comrades. As the night went on, the strikes got stronger. Something with horribly long arms crashed through a window. Its body was made up of muscle and jaws that were snapping. We fought back with a hail of bullets, and the beast's death throes were like a dance of the damned. But for every win, there was a loss. The Viper, a huge guy with a snake tattoo going up his arm, was taken. He fought bravely, but the monsters wouldn't give up. Even after he was gone, his screams could be heard, like a haunting chant that filled the space between attacks. Slowly, the hours went by until a thin line of light started to cut through the darkness. Dawn was coming up, and with it came a choice that made me feel very bad. "We can't stay here," I yelled, my voice getting rough. "We have to move." Toro nodded, but his face was sad. Today is the day of the stock run. Guns, food, and medicine in a truck. This is our best chance. The plan was dangerous. It was a mad dash for freedom that could kill someone or get them away. But they could also stay in this tomb of law and order and wait for the end. We got together the people who were still with us, loaded our guns, and got ready to make our stand. The animals could feel the change, and their cries got more desperate and angry. The front doors blew open, letting a flood of death through. When we shot, the gunpowder and blood filled the air, making it very loud. In all the chaos, Toro was hit, and his side got cut open. He fell and showed pain on his face. I could do something else. Either leave him to improve my chances of staying alive, or do what I knew was right. I made up my mind right away. "Cover me," I yelled and walked over to Toro. I carried him on my shoulder because I was ready to handle his weight. With every step we took, it felt like a fight, and every breath was a prayer. The delivery truck was in front, and the sound of its engine gave people hope. As more survivors joined us, the outside world became a blur of movement and fear. I pushed Toro into the back seat and slammed the door shut behind us. The station was getting farther away as the truck pulled away, and I looked at the man next to me. Toro, the criminal and head of the gang, nodded at me. It was a sign of respect that didn't need words. We had gotten away from death, but the world we were going into was going to be different forever. People in the New World Order would not only be the fittest, but also the most united. This meant that the union we had made would be put to the test. As the city went away, I understood that our fight to stay alive was still going strong. But right now, we were alive, which was the best win in the land of the dead. In a silent world, where the haunting groans of the undead were the only constant, I found solace in a rickety Victorian attic. My name is Leo, a cellist in what seemed like another lifetime. With every corner of the city echoing despair, it was a stray note from a dusty old piano that started it all. As I absent-mindedly pressed down on its yellowed keys, a sudden hush fell outside. Curiosity got the better of me, and soon I found myself experimenting with the instrument. Each sunset, as shadows cast their chilling blanket over the city, I dared to play various tunes. One melody, melancholic and piercing, held a power beyond my understanding. It calmed the zombies, drew them closer, their eyes lost in a trance. The discovery felt like a divine blessing, and clutching a portable keyboard, I ventured out. With every step, the hypnotic tune served as my shield, making my path through the masses of undead somewhat safer. But blessings often come with a curse. My fingers, once swift and nimble, started burning with a fierce intensity every time I played the tune. At first, I dismissed it as exhaustion, but soon the skin began rotting away, blackening with decay. It was as if the very souls I was trying to fend off had started to consume me from within. My heart raced with each confrontation. The pain of playing was insufferable, yet I couldn't let the music fade. One evening, while trying to avoid the melody, I found myself trapped amidst a horde. The tune my only salvation. Gritting my teeth, I played the agony, pushing me to tears. Yet it was my escape once again. The haunting hum of my melody began echoing throughout the city. Yet, every note chipped away at my essence, my fingers nearly skeletal. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor. Just when I thought of laying low, I stumbled upon a group of survivors, weary eyes carrying tales of unspeakable horrors. Among them were children, their innocence a stark contrast to our grim reality. Our brief moment of respite was shattered by the approaching growl of a massive undead horde. Panic ensued, and all eyes turned to me, the reluctant savior. The weight of their expectations paralyzed me. But then I caught the gaze of a young girl, her eyes wide with terror. It was in that split second that I knew what I had to do. Positioning myself to face the horde, I played the entrancing tune with every ounce of strength left in me. The pain was excruciating, but the melody soared, casting its spell. The zombies halted, entranced once again. It gave the group the window they needed, guiding them to safety, away from the imminent threat. As the last note resonated through the cold air, I felt a numbing void. My fingers, now completely decayed, fell limp, rendering me powerless. Alone and defenseless, I sought refuge in an abandoned church. its stained glass windows a testament to hope in another era. The encroaching undead seemed to remember the tune, hesitating momentarily. And there, amidst the stifling silence, memories of the melody hung in the balance. Would the echoes of my sacrifice protect me, or would they fade, leaving me to the mercy of the relentless horde? The answer lies in the echoing silence of the silent symphony. I remember the days when the most action retirement home saw was an intense bingo game on a Friday evening. But everything changed when they came, slowly, relentlessly. I'd been living there for 3 years, enjoying a peaceful, retired life. The smell of Mrs. Johnson's apple pies would waft through the corridors, and the sound of old tunes would often fill the air. It was heaven for someone like me, who had seen enough of the world's madness. One morning, I spotted Mrs. Green from across the hall. Her posture was more stooped than usual, her gait sluggish. But when she turned to face me, her eyes clouded and vacant, sent shivers down my spine. It started with a few, then a dozen, and before we knew it, half the community was infected. The retirement home, my sanctuary, was now a death trap. The first time I had to defend myself, it was against Mr. Peters, my chess partner of 2 years. His once sharp blue eyes were now a milky white, and his fingers, which had meticulously moved kings and queens, now clawed at me. With a heavy heart and a heavier frying pan, I knocked him down. I took charge, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. We had to barricade ourselves, ration our food, and even resort to more gruesome measures when one of our own turned. I remember young Clara, a nurse, suggesting we call for help. But phone lines were down, and our retirement community, nestled away from the bustling city, was isolated. The closest hint of civilization was a town miles away. It's crazy what isolation does to you. I began to see everyone as potential threats. The paranoia got to me, and every time someone coughed or looked a bit pale, I imagined them turning. Trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. One day, as our food supplies dwindled, I made a ruthless decision. We needed to venture out and raid the nearby town for supplies. And to ensure our safety, I thought of using some of the slower, uninfected residents as bait to distract the zombie residents. It was a monstrous plan, but in my mind, it was them or us. Paul, a retired cop and my dear friend, opposed the idea. He believed in sticking together and finding a more humane way out. But I couldn't or wouldn't see reason. To me, survival was everything. The day of the raid, I lied, telling a group of the elderly that we were relocating to a safer place. I led them out, with Paul and a few others trailing behind, ready to gather supplies. As expected, our zombified ex-friends were distracted. The sounds of their former friends and companions being devoured were harrowing. But it bought us time. As we hurried back, laden with food and medicine, guilt ate at me. Paul couldn't look at me after that. Our friendship strained. The community was split, some seeing me as their savior, others a monster. Then, one day, as I was fortifying one of the rooms, Paul confronted me, accusing me of losing my humanity. The argument was heated, and in a fit of rage, I pushed him. He fell, his head hitting a table corner. I watched, horrified, as the life drained out of his eyes. From the hero of Silver Pines, I became its villain. The weight of my actions, the lives I'd sacrificed, and now murdering my best friend, pushed me to the edge. I locked myself away, the voices of those I'd wronged echoing in my mind. I don't know how long I was in there, but when I emerged, Silver Pines was silent. The survivors had left, or maybe turned, alone, surrounded by reminders of my descent into madness. I waited for the end, be it from hunger, one of the turned, or my own guilt-ridden mind.